Greetings, people of Earth. I'm Rick Harold. Thanks for watching my video and listening to my audio podcasts. Today I'm talking about automated testing. It's a very exciting topic. When we first started InstallShield, there's two of us, and I ended up doing most of the development. In fact, eventually I did all of the development because Rush was focused on marketing and sales. We started adding people on over time, mostly support people for shipping the product, because back then there's no fulfillment process. And because our product would end up on, well, eventually 1 billion machines or more, would end up on many, many machines, the testing process had to be very, very good. And I realized early on that we needed to automate this. Now, in the early 90s on Windows 3.0, there was no automation tools of any kind. And when you have a product which has to be able to go onto a machine that it's never existed on and has to take another product with it, which we don't know what it is because we don't always know what bits our customers are going to be distributing, there's a lot of testing you have to try to do to try to anticipate all kinds of issues. Now, the only way to do that is to have it automated. Part of the other reason for the automation is, especially at the beginning, it was just me as a developer. And even as we hired other developers, they were usually doing maintenance or other fixing work or side issues. I needed to make sure that when I handed the software off, I ran it through this automated test process. Now, all developers out there know there's a unit test, which is something you're running kind of inside your code or to something in a programmatic area. But I'm talking about the actual product itself as if our customer was going to be using it. With an installer product, there's a user interface to it, because obviously their customer will take it and be hitting the next key and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of functions in it that have to be tested and lots of different permutations in the way you have to test them. Anybody who's worked with software knows it shouldn't matter what order you call the functions in, but it does, because there's always bugs in there someplace, and they'll show up when you call in a certain order. So we had to do our best to try to create a dynamic programming, dynamic testing environment that would automatically reshuffle things. So we spent a lot of time on that. I spent a lot of time on that. And then there were certain things back in the 90s you couldn't do easily. And we had to do stuff inexpensively. Again, remember, as a bootstrapped company, we can't just be throwing tons of people sitting there testing it by hand. So we created ways of auto-clicking buttons in Windows. We would try to test the screen. But even then, there were situations where someone had made a bug change. What had actually happened is they changed an RGB value so that when you put up a yellow title, it came up green and swapped the bits around. So it was yellow instead of green and green instead of yellow when you would set it a certain way. The only way for us to test that at the time was some person sitting there who had just made sure all the green check boxes come back. That's the automated testing process. And then they had to look at a certain few things of drawings that we couldn't test easily. And, people get mesmerized watching the screen. Sure enough, these bugs got through. So we went back and created a way to try to automate that. The point being, this was an evolution, and we started out with less automation, and we moved the automation up because, especially in our case, especially towards the end of the 90s, when we had a billion endpoints, our product would go out, and it would never come home again. It would go out to our customers and their customers, and it's disconnected, might as well be on Mars, and it's got to work. And if it doesn't work, it's got to be able to work around what its problems are. So having robust automated testing made it efficient because we had constant updates and revisions because Windows and other operating systems were constantly changing and causing us to have to change things in the installer. So we needed a quick way of doing testing for this. VMware and VM images came up in the mid-90s, late 90s. Of course, machines still had some capacity limits at that time to start helping it, so you didn't have to have every hardware combination. But without automated testing, it would be bad. And that's something we're doing here with a lot of automated testing. But I think it's something worth pointing out, and it's good for younger developers to really understand it. Automation and testing is critical. So any tooling you can get around that's great. So that's it. Thanks again for listening, and take it easy.